Hello. So I guess we're going to see if some folks join.
Yep.
So I guess we should start talking about feminine women, right? Are they easy to find? Are they hard to find?
Yeah, so let's get into our feminine women hard to find. Let's cover what makes a woman feminine.
Yeah.
And for the masculine women, how can women become more feminine?
For masculine women to become more feminine, they have to start doing things that men expect them to do, want them to do. You know, if they are out being an independent boss babe, that's not going to work for a guy. For a woman to be feminine, that's not going to cut it because she's taking upon a masculine role. That's the problem with feminine women nowadays.
Yeah, I think a lot of women nowadays look feminine. Where the masculinity comes out is in how they act. A lot of women are good looking. They look feminine at first until you start to talk to them. That's where the masculinity comes out.
They put a feminine type of facade up. So guys think that they're actually feminine when they're really not. So
women know that they have to look good to attract men. That's I think most women understand that. That's why they get surgeries and put makeup on and dress a certain way. It's not until you get to know them and start to interact with them where you'll find out very quickly is she feminine or masculine. It's more in the behaviors, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you could have an ugly woman that's feminine if you think about it. A woman could be ugly. She could be overweight and still be more feminine. I know women that are overweight. I wouldn't date them. You know, I'm not attracted to them, obviously, but they're more feminine in how they behave.
Yeah, I think the women that are in the looks category, as far as the 4s, 5s, and 6s, are more feminine than the 7s and 8s and 9s.
That's how it tends to go. Yeah.
So that's it's an issue when women play feminine, but they're not truly feminine. I think that's a big problem.
And when I say behavior, right? What are like masculine behaviors? I think overall it starts with the attitude. When women challenge men, right? They argue a lot, or they get loud. Mm-hmm. So some of them even have that kind of like assertive like type of personality. Men aren't attracted to that, So again, you may be physically attracted to her. She may be good looking. She may dress good. She may be in shape. She might even work out. But if she acts like that, it's gonna turn the guy away.
Well, yeah, because being assertive with that type of mindset, that's kind of a masculine mindset. So,
the same way that a woman could be attracted to a man, right? She might think the guy's good looking and then get to know him, and then he's soft spoken or like introverted. The behavior is super important. I think looks are good for that initial attraction, but where you're either going to end up hooking up or not, or dating or not, is going to be in the behaviors.
Yeah, I mean the attitude is where it is. If they have a not so great attitude, that's not being feminine.
Here's the question: Why do you think? Because you mentioned a good point. You said that like the women that are on the lower end of the scale, the 4, 5, 6s, they tend to be feminine. Why do you think they end up being more feminine than the better looking ones?
I think they know that they have deficiencies in other areas, especially the looks. So because of that, they have to make up for it, and they have a better attitude.
100%. I think women that are overweight or that maybe just don't look as good, I think they absolutely know that they have to make up for it with how they act. I mean, it's pretty much common sense. If you're an overweight woman and on top of it you have an attitude, which does happen, but generally what I see is that women that are overweight, for some reason, they tend to be more feminine. They're easier to get along with. They don't tend to have an attitude. It happens, but I think you're right. I think it's because they know they have to make up for the lack of physical attractiveness, so they have to be more attractive in how they act.
Yeah, I think women with a negative in looks and a negative in attitude, you're just set out to lose right away. You are.
What about tattoos? Do you think tattoos make women more masculine, or is it kind of like it depends?
Um, I think that's something that makes women masculine. I think they, wear tattoos to kind of show this other side of them, but it's not typically a feminine side, unless it's like some flower or something that they tattoo on their arm. But
I generally don't mind tattoos. It's just when it gets to the point where they're like covered in them, that's when it looks masculine. Like if you look like Machine Gun Kelly, if you have like full sleeves, skulls on your forearms, then that's when it starts to look masculine. I don't mind tattoos in general, but if they're covered in them, it starts to look masculine.
yeah, the tattoos don't bother me. The tattoos are fine. Obviously, not overdoing it, but it does play into some degree of masculinity.
And sometimes it does depending how they get it done. It can be trashy. Like if you're 21 years old and you have a tramp stamp, it might be cool at that age, but like, do you really want to date a woman that's 35 years old and has a tramp stamp and a butterfly on her neck or something like that? It's kind of like
That doesn't make sense.
no.
But you see a lot of women nowadays, they have tattoos. There's a lot of guys that have tattoos too, but there's also a lot of tattoos that women have that are unnecessary. Seems like a little bit much.
Another thing I don't like, I can't stand when women get tattoos like on their face or on their neck. That's masculine as hell. Like, it could be tastefully done. If you have like a feminine tattoo, like those thought tattoos, like a dream catcher, a butterfly or something like that. Sometimes they get tattoos on their waist or their back. It could look good. I've seen some nice tattoos. Just when they're like covered, it gets too much. Or like when it's on the neck, like if she looks like a rapper or something like that, like massive turn off.
In my view, it's not an attractive point. So if women are trying to be, feminine and show attraction, they want to get guys to be interested in them. I think the tattoos thing, sure, have tattoos, but I think there's a limit, So, and it's up for women to obviously decide how many tattoos they get, but the more tattoos they get, the worse off they're going to be. And again, women want to play more of the feminine role nowadays if they want to win. That's what I think. For women to be able to win over a guy, they have to be able to play that role more and more, even if they don't like it as much. Now, if they want to stay in that masculine role, they have all their right to, but our guy's going to want to go in that direction. When that guy is already masculine. I mean, two masculine people doesn't really mesh.
What about when women say, sometimes you call a woman masculine and she'll respond with, "Oh, well, I know how to be feminine in the presence of a masculine man." So they kind of come up with that excuse where it's like, "Oh, well, the only reason I'm being masculine now is because I'm not in the presence of a masculine man. But when I am, I know how to shapeshift into a feminine woman." What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think they should put an act on just because a guy is around. I think they should naturally be feminine. Because, yeah, there's some parts of life where you have to put on this mindset, when you're on your own, when you're working, when you're trying to make something of yourself. But to put this act, I mean, you have to really, in some ways, you do have to be yourself, but you can't put on an act because that can be sniffed out. The fake can be sniffed out.
Plus, if she's usually masculine and she's saying that she knows how to be feminine in the presence of a masculine man, then that just really means she's actually masculine and she's just temporarily,
Exactly,
trying to appeal to that guy.
She's faking it.
Yeah.
It's not going to work in the long term, because eventually the guy's going to see, oh, this woman is too strong. Of course, again, to some degree, there has to be some of that, but to make it where it's a woman that's fully masculine for the most part, it's not going to work for a guy. They want a woman that is submissive. And we mention it quite often where it's come home, no fights, no arguments, bring peace, bring submissiveness, and do things that and act in ways, but in real ways that guys want, that guys attract to.
You know, I think another masculine behavior is, come to think of it, a lot of women sleep around nowadays, which is typically what guys always did, right? And now it's like we've reached a point where it's women that are sleeping around. I mean, if you were to pull aside 100 women and 100 men, I guarantee you the women supersede the man's body count tenfold. So I find that to be another masculine trait. It's not feminine for a woman to sleep around at all. If a man sleeps around, women might hate on it or complain about it, but they know subconsciously, like, okay, that guy's doing something right if he's sleeping around. If a woman sleeps around, I can't imagine. There's no positive to that. It's just like you're thinking to yourself, like, she's dirty, she's a thought, she's easy. Yeah. Maybe she has daddy issues, maybe she has other mental issues, but that's another one.
I think a woman sleeping around is just her taking advantage of all the options she has. All the people that are sliding in her DMs, texting her, contacting her in any way, shape, or form. They're taking advantage of that. They are milking that as much as they can. And sometimes it's not even for the hookup. It's sometimes for a free meal or a free night out. So it depends. It depends on but a lot of women have those options, and a lot of women are taking advantage of those options. It's tough to see women truly settling down nowadays.
Yeah, you rarely really see it, and it's it's interesting because from one end of it they'll tell you how high their standards are, and they need a guy to bring XYZ to the table. They're not settling, but in the meantime they're sleeping around. So it's kind of contradicting to say you have high standards and that you need a man to bring certain things to the table, but then you're sleeping around. So.
It's frustrating because guys, there are guys that would like to settle down, but with women going around cheating, doing all these things that, really ruin a relationship. At this point, it's preventing relationships. It's preventing, great, fantastic opportunities that people could have with one another. It's really.
I've heard people raise the argument that body count doesn't matter. Like, oh yeah, a masculine man shouldn't care about body count. In all honesty, I don't even think it's about the count. Whether it's 50 or 70 or 100, I don't think it's really so much about the count. It's just, that if she slipped around, there's something off about her. So whether it's 30, 40, 50, it's not the count that matters. It's knowing that she sleeps around and she's like that. Even if she stops it, and women do this sometimes, they'll sleep around in their 20s, maybe even into their 30s. And then all of a sudden they flip a switch and they're ready to be a wife, a mom, and get into family mode, but I don't believe there's something off about that.
It's tough for them to flip that switch. It's always in them.
It's always in them. That thought is like sitting there dormant.
It's always ingrained in there. It's never lost. It's just a matter of when in some point in the relationship, when is it going to come out?
100%.
And ruin that said relationship. That's the problem. So for someone to really be real about it, they have to be living that lifestyle. They have to be living that lifestyle where they're doing things honestly. They're going out, dating, one person at a time, and being more faithful than anything. I think that's really the thing here. That's how it should be. But you have now the talking stage, which is a gray area. And then you have when, the guy asks the woman out to be official. And now it's not such a gray area. Now they're exclusive. But what was she doing in that talking stage? How many guys was she talking to? How many options did she have? And how many options was she truly exercising?
So we filmed a full episode a few days ago with a female guest, Catherine Rivera. She's from a podcast called Men's Health is Dope. And I listened to a few of her podcasts on Spotify, and she had one called 12 Red Flags in Women. And then remember, this is coming from a female. This isn't even a male point of view. She said that one of the biggest red flags in women nowadays is when they constantly have to be around people. I didn't even think about that one. That is so true. If you meet a woman and you notice that she's always out and about, she's always got to be around friends, and she's always around a group of people, she's always going out every weekend. Those type of women that always have to be around other people do not make good girlfriends. Because what's going to happen is if she's used to doing that, you date her and you try to kind of like domesticize her and turn her into like a stay at home. It's not going to work because those type of women constantly have to be around people. They always have to be out. It's not a good mix for a relationship at all.
It's like being in jail. She's gonna want to escape.
And you could try to like keep her in the house and like tame her like for a couple months, but she's not gonna like it, and she's gonna just give it a few months and she's gonna go back out and do the same thing. You're not gonna like domesticate, for lack of a better term, that type of a woman. So it's so true.
They want to be free. They want to be out and about. They don't want to be stuck. And this is what's causing the whole, movement where, of course, feminism is involved.
Mm-hmm.
You want your equal rights, but it's not necessarily being used correctly nowadays. It's being abused, if anything. And there are women out there that are upset at women for using feminism in a way that it shouldn't have been used in the first place. That's the problem.
Women are being encouraged to kind of do whatever they want and, be proud of it. I have nothing against women getting careers and becoming educated and all that stuff, because I know that the original point of feminism was to create equality in the workplace and, the right to vote and all that stuff. But now it's past that up, man. Now it's like they're just kind of like encouraging these women to do whatever they want. And I find it funny how not too long ago, feminists used to march during these rallies and say, we're not sex objects, don't sexualize us. Fast forward to 2024, and most of them have OnlyFans, and they're hoeing around, and feminists support it just because it's a female, right, if you will. All of a sudden, they kind of changed their game up. Now it's not don't sexualize us. Now it's like, oh wait, we could monetize being sexualized. We could become millionaires doing this. Okay, fine, sexualize us.
Now the question is this going to be a phase where it's gone on for years now? Is it a phase that's going to continue on for a handful of years, maybe a year, 2, 3, 5, whatever it is, and then kind of end? Or do you see it continuing where this is a never-ending saga? Just, we're seeing in the stats that by 2030 about half the women are going to be single and childless. So do we see it where it gets any better, even a tiny bit, even somewhat? Is it going to improve? Are men going to be able to have opportunities at true feminine women?
It's hard to say where this is all going to end up and like what direction it's going to go in. But like you said, the trend right now is you're seeing less marriages, higher divorces. A lot of women are just kind of like in their mid-30s traveling, and they seem to care less about, I know this won't apply to all of them, but generally that's how it is now. A lot of them are just traveling. They're getting pets. They could care less about being mothers or wives or having kids. If that trickles down into the next generation and that kind of gets passed down and becomes the new quote unquote traditional, that's going to be the new standard, it's not good. That's the, like you said before, that's a direct result of a feminist movement. That's what happens when females get into the, driver's seat and make, I don't want to say political, but, decisions that affect an entire demographic of people, and you influence the entire demographic of people. There you go.
I see any type of change reverting back to what it was, where things were more traditional. I see it being very bleak. Really. I see it being, it could return to what it was somewhat, tiny bit, but I think this trend is going to continue. It's pretty scary.
I think it will continue because let's think back to our parents' era, our grandparents, and everything before that, right? When we think of a traditional household, back then it was what? The man worked, the wife stayed at home, cooked, cleaned, took care of the kids. But what also changes, back then it was feasible for a man to have a regular job, a regular 9 to 5, and make enough money to pay the mortgage, take care of the wife, buy her some gifts here and there, get her hair done, pay for the kids, and it was enough. So that's one factor. it's becoming harder and harder for one person to support an entire household. Um, and back then, it wasn't really a norm for women to even work. If you think about it, right? In the 50s, go pull up any like TV show or movie from that era. Women weren't really expected to work. And now it's the total opposite. Now they are encouraged to work. They want to work. They want to be independent. And look, the stat we were just talking about the other day, women are actually, for the first time in history, buying more homes than men. It's the first time in history that's ever happened.
It's bad because the nuclear family is under attack.
Yeah.
So the, mother, father, son, daughter, that's really, really ruptured right now. That's really, there's an attack. There's a war on that. And is it going to go back to what it was? I mean, you still see it.
No, you still see it.
You still see it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely an attack on it. I mean, like you said, there's ladies traveling, not just in the 20s, but 30s, 40s, okay with being single, divorced, single mom.
It's like they're still having kids. Women are definitely having kids, but what you're starting to see now is they're just not staying together with the father. That there's the problem. So
that's the
look,
problem.
you have women that have multiple kids with multiple fathers. They're still reproducing, but it's just they're not staying with the. When we had that guest on the other day, Catherine, she said it herself that, and she said she was married for a few years and she got divorced, and she said that the problem she sees is that women aren't even, the way she worded it is, women aren't allowing the husband to co-parent the kids. Yeah. It's like the women just want to take control. It gets to a point where like, I don't really need the hubby anymore, so let me just divorce him. I'll take the kids and go back to doing things my way, and I'll raise them my way.
Well, what they dove into was a relationship and then having a kid, getting child support, or getting married and having a child and getting child support, alimony, and then they're pretty much taken care of. If they split up, if they divorce, they're pretty much taken care of. So that's where the problem lies, that women use that and they take advantage of that, and then they're okay with being single because they'll get a paycheck every month. And
that's the messed up part about it is, look, the national divorce average right now in the U.S. is like 43%. That would be fine if it was both men and women ending these marriages. If it was kind of like the line was kind of drawn in the middle, like sometimes men are getting divorced, sometimes women are initiating divorce, but that's not the case. Most of the time, it's not the men that are ending the marriage. It's the woman that's ending it. So,
for their benefits, to take advantage.
Of course, if the tables were turned, if women knew that they were the ones that have to pay child support or have their kids taken away, I guarantee you those rates would drop.
Absolutely, absolutely. Should we?
No,
doesn't matter. So, yeah, it's a big issue, and it's something that if women wanted to get better, they have to make the change. They have to be the one to want to keep it together.
The culture has changed, like in a way, it's kind of like, in that sense, it's in the ball's in the female's court, because at the end of the day, they decide who they want to sleep with. When they get married, they can decide if they want to get divorced. It's really in their court. Men, of course, can do certain things to make the situation better and be a man, be masculine, play that role. And there's only so much you can do up to a certain extent before the ball's in the female's court. You could be a perfect husband, you could be in shape, tall, make a lot of money. She'll still leave you. You see it with celebrities all the time. Yeah. Didn't J-Lo just get filed for divorce with Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
How many husbands did she have?
I think she's been through 5 divorces already. And
this is a woman that dates the highest level guys that exist. A-Rod. And
I think it's twice with Mark Anthony. And there's
Anthony.
There's twice that she did with Ben Affleck. It's the second go around. So, it seems like she's still trying to, because I saw her trying to she's taking some selfies and putting herself out there. So she's still trying to gain that attraction, but it's not the same as when she was in her 20s.
No.
Maybe she could get away with it her early 30s, maybe. But by then, it's downhill. And, she's lucky she's where she is and the status that she has because that's what's gotten her this far. Not a lot of women are going to be able to get this far with that way of life that she went as far as the relationship side. It's good for her. She sang, she, you know, did movies, she's a celebrity, she did her thing. Great for her. But as far as the relationship side of it goes, she completely took a big dump on her relationship and her relationship life, because she's just not relationship material. Yeah, she's been married 5 times, but if you can't keep the guy, eventually you have to look in the mirror and figure out that, hey, I'm the problem. But that's the problem that women, they can't admit it most of the time. They
never admit it.
They can't stand up and look in the mirror and say, oh, it's my fault. Accountability is just
You'll never hear a woman step forward and say, like, you know what, I admit I have mental issues. Like it's always like, oh, he was toxic. Oh, he didn't treat me right. It's always the guy's fault.
Or I admit I suck in relationships.
Yeah.
Women can't say that.
You'll never hear them take accountability for that. That's like their.
If they were to say that, they would be able to make changes because the change comes from within, themselves first. I see guys trying to keep relationships together and, try to work things out. But women, they don't.
We had a female guest the other day. What did she say? A lot of females don't do the inner work. They're very quick to like point fingers at men and blame and all. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are of course toxic men, and let's not even get into that. There are toxic men out there, but in general, this is a female point of view. These aren't even my words. They don't do the inner work. They don't do like what you said, like admit to themselves, like, okay, I've been jumping around from guy to guy to guy. There's clearly a pattern here of failed relationships, like J-Lo's having, and she's like in her 50s. They won't stop and say, okay, I've made some mistakes. This behavior has to change. My behavior has caused XYZ to happen in multiple relationships. They will put that wall up and go on to the next guy and continue the same pattern.
It's pretty cool that she touched on that because not a lot of women can see within themselves, okay, I'm the problem. I have to fix it. I have to make changes. They don't see that. They just can't. They can't face it that they have to make the changes. It's not them. They're not the problem. They didn't do anything wrong. I'm a female. I have power. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm perfect. Blah blah blah. And that's not the case. Nobody's perfect. We're not perfect. So women have to face the fact that they have to fix their issues so things can get better for them within relationships, so they have a brighter future. I mean, yes, they can have all the options in the world. Great. Fantastic. But are those options going to make her happy? Are those options going to be a long-term option? Most of those options are a quickie, a hookup. It's not something where it lasts, even at least a year. Even if it's half a year, 6 months, it doesn't last. It's just something that, okay, I have this guy. Let me see him for a week. While I'm seeing that guy, I'm going to see another guy. So they're playing all these options and then trying to find out, it's hypergamy, who's going to be the one that is better. And then they'll jump to that guy because, guy B is better than guy A. But then they see guy C and they'll want to jump from guy B to guy C or try to balance all of them. And it's just a whole circle jerk.
Social media and dating apps have opened up that world of like women have very easy access to all different types of men. They could be in another country. It doesn't matter. It's very easy for them to kind of like filter through 40, 50 DMs, narrow it down to like, what are the most attractive guys? Who has the most money? Who could fly me out? So, like you said, they have so many options now that I could see why it would be tempting for them to bounce around, because they're just like, at this point, they've completely forgot the traditional stay-at-home wife or mom lifestyle because they have this whole world opened up now.
Yeah, and they're even bad managers because they can't even manage all their options. They have so many options. It's like, what do I do with them? Some of them I don't respond to. Some of them I'll take advantage of because there's benefits for me as a woman. That's what they look at. You know, what
Oh, yeah.
what am I going to benefit from?
Oh yeah.
And if they see it's just a guy trying to get some, then they're not going to entertain that.
Women are programmed by default to look for resources as it is, right? That's like, I guess, like a survival trait. So when you give them access to like guys in Greece and Dubai and Miami and LA and like fancy lifestyles, and they get thrown on yacht parties, mansion parties.
That's what guys are competing against.
That's what guys are competing
And
against
that's
now.
where guys lose because a lot of guys don't have that
And it's
level
changed.
of status.
It's changed the female perspective on regular guys, because up to a certain point before social media, being average wasn't necessarily such a bad thing. Now, if you're average in a woman's eyes, you're way below average.
Yeah.
They're not looking at average anymore.
So we'll have to see what women start doing, but I don't see the change coming, and in any imminent time frame.
No, it's definitely like a cultural shift, and I agree. I don't see it getting any. You know, men have to adapt to it. Like, men have no choice but to step it up. I think we no longer live in a time where being average is going to cut it anymore, and it's that kind of sucks on the male part. But if anything, it's a way to motivate yourself to make more money and get into shape, because you'll get left behind if you become average, or God forbid, like overweight. You stand no chance.
And just money isn't going to do it. There's going to be a lot more that's involved. You got to have game. You have to have some way that you can show that you're moving and
Yep.
improving day by day. You know, even if you're at that high level, you still have to show, okay, well, I have the nice sports car that I'm driving around. So next week, what can you do? You have to have maybe the yacht or something crazy. And it's just insane because there are guys that have it and they blow the competition out of the water. And we're not talking about just the average male. We're talking about the other high level guys that they're competing against. And you know, that's where most of the women are flocking to. So if they're balancing a roster, they have the capability to hire that level of man, then they're going to balance a bunch of millionaires.
If you DM a woman, the first thing she's going to do is take a look at your Instagram profile. So if your Instagram profile doesn't portray what she's looking for, that's going to be an automatic no for her. I know another thing women do is women will research you. Like if she's like even remotely interested in you and she wants to find out more about you, these women turn into FBI agents. They will Google you, LinkedIn. They'll do a background check on you. They'll figure out where you live, who your friends are, where you like what you do for work. That's to the extent that it's gotten to. Is like they're gonna figure out, like, is there any potential in this guy?
And it's funny because if there's one thing that they don't like, even before talking to the guy, that's gonna disqualify him.
Oh yeah,
just like that.
They look to disqualify over like the smallest thing. Yeah.
And as much as people say, oh, you know, women aren't about looks, you know, they look at someone and say, oh, I don't like this about them right away, without even looking into searching about what they are about and who they are about, what they do. They'll be like, oh, next, you know, because it's just way too many options. It's
You know, since we're on the topic, we're talking about like where's the trend going? Like, you know, in terms of dating, I think, in all honesty, I think online dating had its peak. It's definitely on a decline. A lot of people are kind of giving up on dating apps. I think the best position, if you're as a man, if you're out in the field approaching women in public, I think that's going to be your best bet, because most guys aren't doing that anymore. They're still on the apps. They're still DMing, putting fire emojis, and it's just like
doesn't work.
No, not anymore. Mm-mm.
That's something that even at first, yeah, maybe it was a small high for a woman, but that's, you know, all the time people are putting fire emojis and heart emojis and, you know, all this other BS, and that doesn't work.
I think one of the pluses of meeting women in person is that when it's in person, she doesn't know your Instagram. She doesn't know anything about you. Everything is right there in person. So you have a higher chance of, it's either going to be a yes or a no. because you're right there. She's not gonna have. You're gonna give her your Instagram eventually, but at that very moment, you're having a conversation. It's body language, it's eye contact, it's the vibe. If you DM her and she starts snooping your profile and like she'll go through your friends list. That's another thing I heard, which I think is stupid. Like that girls look at like who you follow, and if they see you follow like too many girls, that might turn them off, or they call that like an ick. It's so stupid, but really, I think in person is the way to go nowadays.
Of course, of course. I don't think you can do much by even trying to send a DM. Of course, more or less know the person if you're going to send a DM, not just for a dating purposes. Don't just send a random DM thinking that she's even going to read it.
No. And now Instagram will just put it like how you have like the primary, the general folder for DMs. Yeah. She might not even get it.
They'll put it as a spam or something.
Spam, yeah.
So, what do you think? Should we switch apps?
Yeah. If you guys are on right now, we're gonna actually switch really quick to TikTok live. So check out the podcast guys on TikTok. We're gonna go live on there for a little longer.
Yeah, subscribe to the channel, guys. Support, and we're trying this out. We're trying this live thing out, seeing how it goes. Peace out.